You guys want to ask questions, or how are we? I mean, I thought it was gonna be question answer.
Well,
Or you want us just to respond?
Sure. Why don't you just start? This is Lindsay from 21 News. Why don't you start by explaining the situation that unfolded yesterday? Because I know there was a lot going on at once.
Yes.
I was called by my sergeant to respond to Trumbull Memorial Hospital in reference to two unresponsive children. When I responded on scene at the hospital, I was advised by medical staff that the children were revived using Narcan, which is used to bring somebody out of that we use to bring people out of an overdose after using opiates. One child was life flighted, Akron Children's. Second one was taken by ambulance to Akron Children's. Children's Services was called in. They currently are now the primary custodians of the children. We brought down a couple people for some pretty lengthy interviews. We pretty much got together, exactly what happened at the residence. We're not releasing that at this point per the investigation. We're also consulting with the prosecutor about charges that are going to be filed.
So charges have not been filed?
They have not been
yet.
filed at this point, no.
Are you looking to sort of proceed with criminal charges?
Yes, that's going to be our main goal, is to proceed with criminal charges, but we have a lot of work, and we also have information we have to still gather, including the toxicology. Even though it's assumed, we don't like going ahead until we have it in black and white that, yeah, opiates were in their system. So we are working on that today. That takes, and working with Children's Services, we're obtaining those records. We hopefully will have them by the end of the day. And charges could be filed as soon as by the end of the week, early next week.
All right, now, go
Why
ahead.
do you believe this may be like accidental? You don't think they on purpose were exposed to the situation that they were in?
That'll come out in the investigation. It all came pretty clear what happened yesterday, but the children, our main suspect that we're looking at right now is the mother, who was the primary caregiver and who was present at the time. The children are in a situation they shouldn't have been in.
Now, when you say suspect, what do you mean by that?
The mom being the primary caregiver of the children, and being that she was the one at the hospital, she came down. We interviewed her for about two and a half hours. But when we do confirm that there are opiates in the system, then we will proceed with criminal charges pending speaking with our prosecutor.
How long is it going to take for you to get those toxicology results?
I'm hoping by the end of the day. We started the ball rolling that this morning. We were at Trumbull Memorial, and also Children's Services have been talking with Trumbull
And obviously, this is something, it's a little bit harder for your investigation because our key witnesses are below really talking age. So you can't really interrogate them and our victims and ask them the questions that need to be, correct?
Well, interviewing the mother for an extensive period of time yesterday. She was cooperative. We kind of got a whole picture of what took place. It's just a matter of what we want to release at this point. We don't want to jeopardize the investigation by putting too much out there. That'll be up to the prosecutor and eventually the grand jury for charges. We're going to put together the best case we can. We're just glad the children are still with us.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. So we just got a lot more work has to go into this, and waiting on, like I said, toxicology, and ultimately charges are going to be filed.
And just to be clear, this is the first time you've ever heard in the city of Warren.
Well, in the 3 years that I've been up in charge of the Detective Bureau, it's the first time I've ever heard of such a thing. And the response out of the people at the hospital was pretty amazing. I mean, they did a great job, but the response from them tells me they haven't seen that too much either. So that doctor was, and you know, Nick, and he can tell you the same thing. When he walked out of that room, the look on his face was that of disgust. So obviously, he hadn't even talked to me yet, and I already knew something wasn't right. And that's how the whole thing started. You know, because originally they're just scrambling around trying to save these kids. And when you don't have any information on why they're sick, and they just tell you, you know, we're looking at carbon monoxide, you know, what did they, you know, but why them and not the adults? So there was a lot of questions. And if they would have just been more forthright in the beginning, yeah, we could have done it quicker. I mean, they basically could have put the lives of those kids at jeopardy if the hospital staff didn't act appropriately or, you know, immediately.
Think to use it at first.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trumbull Memorial did a great job with
Yeah.
the kids yesterday.
Yeah.
All right, now what was the state when they were brought in? I know you arrived there after, but were they not breathing? Were they, define unresponsive in a term?
Very lethargic state, not their normal selves. Just
Shallow
kind of
breathing.
a blank stare, just there.
So they were out of it. They
It was
were
it was
still
almost like a
awake.
semi-coma. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, not knocked out, you know, but, you know, they were breathing, but it was just a slow, and they just kind of were there, you know.
said the oldest one acted like that first, and then it was the younger one that started to show symptoms.
The oldest one responded to the Narcan. She responded, she was up, she was spry, you could see she was, you know, smiling at some point. The younger one, now granted, he's 9 months old, so, you know, he's not gonna have the same emotions that she has, but his response wasn't the same. He was still a little, you know, lethargic, not quite as bad as the beginning, but he still wasn't right.
Did you have issues at this house before?
We're not releasing that this time.
So the children will be held until tomorrow at Akron Children's?
I'm going to Children's Services as soon as we're done here. And like I said, doing the child cases, the child investigations. I work hand in hand with CSB every day. I'm there half my day as it is. So they're doing a great job, as they always do. And they're working with us kind of parallel with the investigation. And we're, like I said, get all our ducks in a row. And but ultimately, once the children are released, they'll be in the custody of Children's Services.
I think it's a 48-hour period that we were looking at for
Yeah,
observation.
I believe so.
For the ingesting of opiates because of the health risks that a kid would run if they ingested that. So that's part of where we're at as far as they're concerned. So I think once they get out of the woods, as time passes, then they'll go right back to CSB and be in their custody until.
Put in a foster home until the investigation continues in a custody hearing.
Yeah, there's a lot that has to be done yet.
Yeah.
And can you say anything about what kind of state the house was in when your officers arrived?
No.
Yeah, I actually, we stayed at the hospital the whole time, and then we conducted interviews after, so we weren't present at the house. So I'd rather not comment about that. Plus, you know, like I said, we still have a few more things to do. So when it all comes out, then we'll let you guys know.
So hopefully charges filed at the end of this week. That is
End of this week, next week.
okay.
Like I said, we're talking with the prosecutor. I've already talked with prosecutors at Common Police. So the main goal is charges be filed. The exact date, I can't promise you anything, but ultimately it'll come down to the grand jury. like I said, we still have some work to do before we get that far.
Now, I know you guys aren't doctors, but what kind of complications, if this was an opiate, like heroin, could these kids face?
We have no idea.
There was some discussion, I did have a talk, something with the liver, it could affect the liver, and then something with seizures. You know, again, you're talking a 30 or 40 pound kid that, you know, if you and I done it, and we don't have no threshold of, you know, tolerance level, you know, you and I could take it, it could kill us. So let's just think of a little baby and the weight, you know, and granted, it might not have been a lot. I don't know that, okay, because they're obviously still alive, but it affects them in way different ways than you and I. I mean, their brain hasn't developed all the way. You know, they still got a ways to go. So yeah, it's a sad state of affairs, but we're definitely on it.
Is there any health risk Narcan present to a child? Or
I can't answer that one.
No,
I just
I can't
know
answer
from the talk with the doctor, as far as the opiates are concerned, it definitely could affect them. So that's the reason for the observation of 48 hours.
And the mother claims she was sleeping when this happened. Did you stick by that story, or is that?
We're not gonna release
Yeah.
that this time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's it.